confidential aspect. Now, after healthcare, they would also look into utility sector, shutting down operations for targeting, say, utilities of a country, of their targeted country of choice. Next, also is another increasing trend, which is a supply chain attack. They would just not target a particular organization or a big institution. They would also target to have the biggest profit. Let's say vendors, let's say our supply chain, type of brand, type of solution, so that they would now have access towards yung mga clientele na maggamit po ng mga solutions ng mga vendors, ng mga brands na yun. This is also increasing. This is not a part of our discussion this morning, but I just want to share to you, ma'am, sensors, na umi-increase na rin po ang supply chain attack. Tina-target nila, if you've heard, last year, just Q4 alone, let's say Citrix Bleed, also move it, ng mga exploits. If we are using these types of brands, these types of solutions, there is a big risk and probability that we would be susceptible on those types of exploits as well. So we have to be wary on the supply chain attack too. Now, of course, government sectors is unfortunately their favorite target ng mga cyber attackers, particularly because government sectors, of course, hold the highest amount of PII or personally identifiable information, especially of its citizens ng country po na yun. That's why once they have that access, they could now do a campaign of increasing, let's say, their credential access probabilities of it being successful, because they have an insurmountable amount ng mga databases ng mga citizens ng tinarget po nila na government institution. With that said, it is also particularly being used as a cyber warfare agenda in the sense ng mga cyber attacks. If we look into, say, Israel-Palestine war that is going on, and especially Russia-Ukraine war that was, this was 2 years ago, or 2 years back, we have seen sa mga news and sa mga public information that there is also a big aspect of cyber warfare. That is why they were successful in initiating yung mga cyber or yung mga warfare and yung warfare actions ng mga particular countries against their enemies. So cyber warfare is also now becoming a very big tactic and a very big aspect in terms of military strategy. Pagka tumatarget po ang isang, say, state-sponsored na mga cyber attackers versus sa kanilang mga country of choice or enemies po nila, enemies of the state. And syempre, nandiyan na rin po ang financial institution, mainly because they hold the biggest amount of profit that would be attainable ng isang cyber attacker if they have successfully penetrated a financial institution. These are just some of the industries na lagi pong mga tina-target. These are also the industries that needs to have a very proactive approach on their cyber posture. But it doesn't stop there. We as private institutions, whether we are working with, say, let's say a BPO industry, following policies and regulations, also if we are working with the public industry, we have to be more proactive in protecting against cyber attacks, especially nowadays and moving forward po, because they utilize a very sophisticated or combinations of sophisticated attacks, as what I am going to share on the succeeding slides, sensors, as an example. Now, with that said, we look into what would be a general evolution of threat and why is this happening? What are the evolution in the sense of how did it came into be when we compare it to, say, previously 10 years ago, mga panahon ng ang endpoint is a term pa ng or hindi pa kilalang term ng endpoint, much more well known as an antivirus pa ng mga times pa yun. What changed coming here into 2023-2024 era? First of all, ang main big change po na ginagawa ng mga cyber attackers is living off the land. This is the technique to avoid detection. When we say living off the land, they utilize legitimate applications, whether it be utilizing PowerShell, whether it be utilizing RDP ng Windows, and looking into exploits and vulnerabilities. Before going through that and doing reconnaissance, they use first living off the land in the sense of leveraging yung mga legitimate applications that they could see sa mga tina-target nilang organization. This has been escalating in the sense of they have been researching further how to look into or researching further into new exploits, new 0 days, so that they would not be detected if they have leveraged yung mga 0 days po na yun, especially sa mga OS layers and OS level po natin ng ating mga organization. Ito po ang isa sa pinaka-main change na ginagawa nila. We call it living off the land, when they use legitimate applications, legitimate tactics and techniques, or sorry, legitimate softwares para hindi sila ma-detect when they go through and do a reconnaissance and proceed with their TTPs, kanilang techniques, tactics, and procedures. Another one is also combining automated active adversaries. So this is not just leveraging their capabilities, their expertise ng mga cyber attackers. Of course, yung mga cyber attackers, especially when they are in the category ng state-sponsored threat actor. So ito yung mga sponsored po ng mga well-known, although they don't admit it, but mga well-known na mga countries that has resources for actual cyber attackers. It's not just about their expertise, yung kanilang manpower ng expertise nila. They also leverage tools and uh, um, programs, AI, for example, when they conduct their approach towards dun sa kanilang groups of targeted organizations, they automate it as well. If we automate our defenses, they know that, and they were one step ahead when they look into sa kanilang mga groups of targeted organizations, or better said, industries, targeted industries po nila. They leverage AI, they look into sophisticated tool sets from Kali Linux, yung mga containers nila that is very much automated. Case in point, when they use phishing tactics, you could now just download in 15-30 minutes from Kali Linux, mga containers at mga dockers at mga scripts that would allow you templates for proper phishing attacks. Third one is covertly modifying security controls. This one is quite deadly. I'll show you later on a slide after this how they do this in the sense of what do we mean when they covertly modify security controls na nakikita nila once they are inside an organization. And lastly, as I've mentioned, they also exploit ang third-party vendors in the supply chain. Last year, there are reports already that last year was the biggest supply chain attack, mainly conducted through dun sa nangyari po sa MoveIt. MoveIt, hindi po yung cab railing application or cab hailing rather application. MoveIt is file transfer software. It was actually targeted over an SQLI, SQL injection. And once yung attackers, this was a Cloak ransomware attacker, Cloak yung pangalan ng group, when they targeted yung MoveIt na company, or na, which is Progress, yung company MoveIt yung software, they were able to exfiltrate, as of the last count, about 83 million PII and PHI combined across the globe. It is now the biggest use case ng isang supply chain attack. And they look into supply chain further and further on, especially coming into 2024, ang mga cyber attackers po. This is just a summary ng evolutions of threat. And when we go into an evolution of threat, we have to also look into what does a typical enterprise ransomware deployment looks like. How do they drop yung payload nila? If we are talking about, say, a ransomware attack, how do they go into an organization in a general aspect? What would be a typical sense? When they conduct a typical enterprise ransomware deployment, ang main po na cause would almost always be one device. They only need one device alone, a compromised device or a compromised user. Once they have that compromised device, they would now crawl and look into towards our servers, and once they have an escalation of privileges, pag nakuha po sila ng credential na ngayon ng mga servers natin, they would now go into dun sa mga nakikita nila mga users ng organization na yun. Best example po niyan is what happened with Okta last year ng Q4. Okta was breached through one device alone towards dun sa kanilang customer support. Yung customer support po nila na employee ng Okta as a multi-factor authenticator vendor, that customer support employee actually logged into his or her Google username and password. Pinasok niya po yung kanyang Google identity. Maybe siguro po pinasok niya dahil may pinanood siya YouTube on the time na may ginagawa po sa work nila. But pinasok niya yun sa kanyang laptop that was provisioned by the company, which is Okta. Once that happened, unfortunately may exploit, and unfortunately compromised po yung Google account niya. They were now able to go into Okta itself, looking at a public-facing server. And from that point on, they were able to access yung customers ng Okta mismo. And they were now able to victimize MGM Grand. And also, I forgot na po yung isang casino. But basically, these two casinos ang nabalita po last year that was compromised po ng businesses nila at na-stop due to ransomware, nag-dump ng payload, na-stop po yung business processes nila. Yan po is nakapasok sila towards isang user device lang. And from there, they were able to escalate and move laterally across dun sa organization ng Okta. Now, with that said, they also conduct actually a double extortion tactic. And this double extortion tactic or attack looks as such. We look into an example ng Medusa Locker. It is published. The link is below. We would provide you po ng reference na to as a PDF copy. So you could look into dun sa public link po natin na sinishare po ngayon sa baba. But currently, if we want to look at how does Medusa Locker TTP looks like simplified, it is in 4 steps. First of all is, of course, they'll bring into, there is just an issue on my end po, ma'am and sirs. Ayan. First of all, they would, of course, bring into their payload yung kanilang ransomware of choice na software. But they'll also leverage an exploit. And in this case, sa Medusa Locker, they were leveraging OKill. or BYOVD tactic, which is a bring your own vulnerable driver. They use actually a Windows certificate, an older Windows certificate, to obfuscate themselves and put on a payload, piggyback a payload on that Windows certificate para po ma-accept ng Windows na tinatarget nila na organization, ma-accept ng OS na tinatarget ng organization, and now they would have access on the kernel layer, on the kernel mode, basically having a super admin rights access. From this point on step 3, they would now conduct yung sinasabi po natin na they are covertly modifying yung security controls na makikita nila. Basically po, they would disable yung makikita nilang security tools na nandun inside dun sa tinarget nilang company, and also delete yung mga backups, including yung mga shadow backups na makita nila. From this point on, wala na pong laban yung tinarget nila ng organization. And from this point on as well, when we say double extortion, it is actually not just putting in yung ransomware payload, but also exfiltrating PII, SPII, AHI information makuha nila na data. Mainly because if hindi po magbayad ng organization, at least magbibenta nila yan over the deep web. And we have seen that already. Hindi ko na po kailangan i-mention yung kung ano pong industry o ano pong institution ang tinarget ng isang Medusa Locker group. But we all know from public news kung ano po yung nangyari. And basically, first news was that it was ransomware, but after a week, it was now an exfiltration tactic. And with that said, we look into the statistics. What we could see is that the rate of ransomware, when we compare on the previous years, is actually very much increasing. The last survey that we have was actually in the first half of 2023. The final 2023 has not been published yet, mainly because we are on just February of 2024. But what we could see is that the first half of 2023 is already at 66% already, equivalent ng 2022 year or 2022 year ng rate of ransomware attacks. This means that 1 or 2 out of 3 organizations is mentioning globally that they have seen or have successfully seen an attempt ng isang ransomware attack sa kanilang mga company. And that is a big ratio already. With that said, there are top 3 cyber threat concerns for 2023. Namely, nandiyan pa rin po ang phishing as top 2. Phishing pa rin ang isang pinaka-biggest vector na pinapasukan ng mga cyber attackers. But now, ang number 1 tactic now, the number 1 concern now ng mga organizations across the board would be data exfiltration, theft by an external attacker. Ransomware is now on top 3. Particularly because we now have a lot of complex layers of defenses against ransomware attacks. But data exfiltration, once it is successful, you could not do anything. Once it is successfully exfiltrated ng cyber attacker, pagka nakakuha na po sila ng copy, and they'll blackmail us, especially on publishing yung data that they have exfiltrated on the deep and the dark web. If we look at average ransom payments naman ng mga asking price po nila by country, including the Philippines, we would be able to see, based from a mid-enterprise going up, that the average is about 87 million ang asking price. This is from mid-enterprise and up. Of course, for SMB market, that would be like 2x below. But what it does say is that we now have an increase as well ng mga ransom payments asking price ng mga cyber attackers, especially if we compare it, let's say, on a WannaCry era, ng mga 2015 po. 2015 is very much lower mga asking price nila. Now it is increasing as well kung magkano po mga asking price ng mga cyber attackers. An average as of the last report, this was for last year, about 87 million pesos na average asking price po nila. And lastly, ang cost naman ng how to or cost po ng how much to rectify an attack. When we consider, let's say, the cost of manpower, the loss of business, loss of reputation, all of the network infra that we have to redo para po mag-rectify ng isang successful attack, that would be in an average 72 million, about 63% increase from the previous year. That's also increasing as well. With all of that said, cybersecurity is now becoming very much complex for most organizations to manage effectively. When we look into the top three factors on why it is becoming a challenge for organizations to manage cybersecurity para sa ating mga companies, those top 3 factors are actually, number 1, increase in cyber threats. Ito po yung dinidiscuss natin on the first half ng ating presentation this morning. Number 2 is complexity across the board, whether it be different, playing around the different cybersecurity tools and different defenses, multiple layers of defense, playing around different vendors as well, yung mga different methodologies. Kung meron po tayong mga IT teams na nandito ngayon sa call, I'm sure, ma'ams and sirs, alam po nila yan, pag-certify lang sa isang vendor para maging, let's say, solutions or para maging architect at certified architect ang isang vendor of choice po nila, is also time-consuming already. Tapos marami po pong vendors na, in the sense of, let's say, sa isang company, maraming vendors na kailangan pa nilang i-certify sa ating mga IT teams. It all adds up to the complexity when we look into different layers of defense that we have to all understand and know. And lastly is the expertise. Where to source out yung expertise na hinahanap po natin para makapag-defend at makapag-provide sa atin ng proper cyber posture moving forward in defending against these types of sophisticated cyber attacks para sa ating mga kumpanya. Those 3 things are the main challenges organizations are facing. But what can we do about these types of issues, these types of challenges, and these types of threats? We look at, first, in looking into categories on at the baseline we should at least have for our companies in defending against cyber attacks. First of all, we look at the top 3 ones, yung ating triumvirate po ng mga defenses. That would be ang ating endpoint, ang ating network, which is the firewalls, and lastly, ang ating emails, ang ating identities, ang ating, if we have an IAM, PAMs, ang ating mga credentials. But it doesn't stop there. As I mentioned, emails po natin, we also have to look at proper defenses against emails. If we have cloud platforms that we utilize, especially for digital transformation, we also have to look at configurations on that. The top attack vector naman sa mga cloud platforms natin is not necessarily the cloud platform itself, but on the misconfigurations na mga nilalagay po natin. Those misconfigurations might be utilized ng mga cyber attackers pag nakita po sila ng misconfigurations, especially if we have multi-cloud platforms that we utilize for our companies. And lastly, network as a whole. Not just on the firewall, but also on our access points, our switches, if we have NDR, so ating network detection and response tools, these types of things, at the baseline, we should at least have protections and at least set up tools to look into defenses para po sa ating mga layers na po pwedeng pasukan ng mga cyber attackers para sa ating company. The problem there is that those have a very big scope. At iba't ibang topics po yan, iba't ibang categories ng cybersecurity. Again, now this adds up to further complexities. Dito po tayo ngayon nagkakaroon ng issues in the sense of IT risk management. And this has been becoming very challenging for everyone here in the call and for organizations across the globe. If you've heard last year, if we've seen po, pumunta po tayo at umattend po tayo ng mga cybersecurity events last year, ang lagi pong keyword na nababanggit would be IT risk management. Risk, prioritization of risk management in the perspective of cybersecurity. This is now an ongoing aspect in protecting ourselves and looking into governance, risks, and compliances, and strengthening up our GRC defenses as well. With that said, and to segue with GRC, we have what we call NIST. NIST is a US-based framework that is being conducted by majority and being utilized by majority of organizations. If you're not familiar with NIST, this is a public documentation of a cybersecurity framework from National Institute of Standards and Technology. You could just search po ang NIST CSF or cybersecurity framework. You would be able to see ang most common na makita po natin dyan na functions, which would be on identification of our assets. Next would be the function of how to protect those assets that we have identified, how to detect yung mga threats, how to respond to threats, dyan pumapasok ang mga incident response actions, and how to recover if a threat and an attack has been successfully conducted and was able to penetrate sa ating mga company, how to recover from a proper business state pag na-attack po tayo. This is the traditional NIST. Ito po yung 1.0. But now, by February 2024, they will actually publish now a new function, the very most or the uppermost function, which is a focus on govern. And yung govern po, dito lang ngayon papasok ang GRC. Ito ang pinaka-main importance ngayon when we look at and if we follow the NIST CSF, the cybersecurity framework. The govern aspect would now have the highlights in how to properly conduct, implement, and push into a process ang mga risk management. I am sharing this towards the audience, ma'am, sensors. For those that are not aware, please feel free to look into the NIST CSF 2.0. Marami po tayo makikita dyan na very good framework, especially if we are planning our cybersecurity framework for 2024. And this is free. This is being published for any organizations that would want to look into. Just do a Google search po ng NIST CSF 2.0. Makikita po natin ang best practices in how to properly build up our cybersecurity framework for our company. With that said, when we talk about SOFOS, we look into these 4 functions ng NIST. From the govern aspect, ito po ang ating mga categories at mga solutions po natin for that. From the protect aspect as well, so natin makikita ang endpoint solution ng SOFOS at ang network solution ng SOFOS. And from the detect and response, mainly led by our SOFOS managed detection and response. For our SOFOS, because we are talking about what can we do, we have what we call a flywheel to deliver an optimal cybersecurity outcome. We cannot rely anymore sa toolsets. Hindi na po talaga enough ang network lang, ang firewall lang, ang endpoint lang, but we also have to leverage as what cyber attackers are doing, automation processes, capabilities ng ating brand of choice. And for this case, SOFOS, also we have to leverage AI modeling tactics and techniques na ginagawa po ng ating mga brands, ng ating SOFOS solution. And at the lower portion, you would be able to see that SOFOS is one of the topmost provider of threat detection and response as a service. We actually call it cybersecurity as a service. And this cybersecurity as a service is somewhat like what having already an instant SOC para po sa ating companies. For the SMB organizations, this would be a good exploration para po sa atin. We need to have expertise, as I mentioned po kanina, yung mga challenges na na-face ng mga organizations as we move forward. And when we subscribe to SOFOS cybersecurity as a service, specifically the SOFOS MDR, we would now have capability of a 24/7 threat detection and response provided by the SOFOS experts. Sila na po ang titingin at magpo-provide ng threat detection and response capabilities to proactively defend against cyber attacks. And SOFOS, as 30 plus years in the market of providers of cybersecurity solutions, you would be able to give your trust towards the SOFOS brand. That they would be top-notch in providing you a protection and detection and response service for your organizations. Of course, ma'am sensors, unfortunately, we don't have so much time this morning. Please let us know if you would need to have further exploration and discussions on the SOFOS cybersecurity as a service. We would be very much happy to provide it to you one-on-one for you and your team. Feel free to reach out to our partner, to our IPSolutions team, if you require that, ma'am sensors, after this discussion. Now, just the one quick highlight, the main difference na pinoprovide po natin ngayon sa market and sa mga organizations for Sophos, which is our Sophos MDR, is that, of course, we are natively integrated with our other Sophos tool sets. But we could also integrate with our other third-party competitors, our friendly competitors, such as what you could see from the slide. Whether it be from an endpoint category, from a firewall category, email category, IAM, also from cloud SaaS, and from mga NDR po na mga categories. What you are seeing here is our capability to integrate and provide detection and response activities if you are already using some of the our friendly third-party competitors that you are seeing here on the screen po currently. Now, I just want to quickly share, we're actually about to end na po ang ating discussion, quickly share some third-party validations from Gartner, Spear Insights, and also G2. We are actually the top-rated MDR service as of G2's third-party validation. And in conclusion, with all of that said, ma'ams and sirs, when we move forward on the current cyber attacks and the current cyber trends that we are seeing and what I've shared to you on our first part of our discussion, we now have to look into further capabilities ng defenses ng ating mga tools po natin. And for Sophos, we would kindly want for the audience here to explore further cybersecurity as a service. To complement ang current po natin, if we have Sophos users here in the audience, kung meron po tayo mga Sophos users, it complements and augments yung capabilities by providing service in the sense of detection and response capabilities from the Sophos experts as well. By leveraging ang ating award-winning tools na makikita po natin ang from Sophos portfolio, which is Intercept X for endpoint and Sophos XGS for the firewalls, and leveraging as well the human expertise from the Sophos experts, we would now have capability to expect a better cyber posture and move into a proper cyber resilience para po to defend proactively against sa mga cyber attacks na makikita natin. And with that, our last slide would be, I just want to leave you, ma'ams and sir, some best practices lang po that we cannot forget. Just top 5 lang. Common best practices. Number 1, be proactive. We cannot just rely on the usual po natin ng mga toolsets because cyber attackers are not relying with their usual tactics as well. Case in point, feel free to explore po ang ating Sophos Cybersecurity as a service. Second, look for signals. Itong example po natin kanina sa Medusa Locker, if we're using, say, for example, Sophos XDDR, look for proper signals if we have that capability, such as itong OKIll na ginamit po nila na exploit or also known as backstab-d. Look for signals kung meron po tayong capabilities at kung meron po tayong mga cybersecurity analysts. If we don't have, feel free to go back to number 1, be proactive po by, again, exploring cybersecurity as a service ni Sophos. Third is find our gaps. Where does our gaps currently reside? We could use ating mga VAPT tools that we explore on other providers na ating mga vendors po, or we could also properly conduct a risk assessment and use and leverage ang mga cybersecurity frameworks such as from NIST. We need to almost always find our gaps, our current gaps. Lastly, or second to the last rather, is almost always use yung ating mga employee best practices or individual best practices. Never just use one password across the board. Yung example po natin kanina na nakapasok ang isang cyber attacker towards dun sa Okta is most likely yung password din niya dun sa Google niya, sa support po ng Okta, is also yung password niya rin sa kanyang employee access credential dun sa kanyang Okta user or Okta portal. Always use different passwords for different portals and different credentials po natin. Of course, for the IT teams, conduct continuous health checks po sa ating mga systems and security. And lastly, ang pinaka-important golden rule for cybersecurity, and this is coming from a well-known cybersecurity expert, a US cybersecurity expert, si Mr. Nick Espinosa. Meron po siyang saying, if there is a vulnerability, it will be exploited. Unfortunately for companies, any company, there is almost always a vulnerability. It is a matter of perspective na meron at meron po mapapasukan ang mga cyber attackers. Now, it's our duty to lower that risk na makapasok po sila sa ating mga companies. That actually ends our discussion of cybersecurity threats for 2024. I hope some of our highlights, you were able to extract po some information from there. Currently, I'm just going to open up the chat box, ma'am and sirs, kung may mga questions po tayo. Please feel free to type in pa po yung mga questions natin. But after this, we will have yung ating post activity. I'm going to transfer po the floor towards kay Ms. Les. I'll just open yung chat box po muna and check lang kung meron po tayong questions. Okay, so wala naman pong currently questions. If you have questions, ma'am and sirs, please feel free to type it in. I'll try to address it as soon as possibly can. But if you don't have any questions so far, Ms. Les, I'll transfer the floor to you to conduct po yung ating post activity this morning.
Thank you, Sir Anthony. So before we move on po to post activity natin, can I request po to open your cam for picture taking po? Okay. Wait lang natin yung iba. Okay lang po, Sir Checo. Okay. Okay lang po, okay lang po. Okay, start na. Okay, smile. Another one pa po. Ayan. Ayan, thank you. So for our quiz B po, kindly open your browser and just type quiz.com. Quiz.com.
I think, ma'am, we need to type na rin sa chat box kung ano po
Okay
yung
po.
kailangan nilang puntahan na website.
Okay po. Quiz.com.
And I guess, Miss Les, please feel free to mention kung ano po ba yung mga prices na makukuha
Yes po,
nila.
yes po, yes po.
Ever.
So, let me know po kung nasa ano na kayo Nasa pinaka-home na. Okay. Share ko na lang yung ano. Ayan, eto. Pag nandito na kayo, you will see the join game, enter pin. Ito po yung magiging pin nyo. Yes, one po. 109544. Yan. Please note lang po, yung ilalagay yung ano, yung name nyo, surname, then company para mas madali kayong ma-recognize. Surname, and company name. Yan. Hintayin lang natin yung iba. Mhm.
Clanasa, CGH. Semin, CGH.
Ay sir, kindly ano po, open your browser po. Type nyo lang yung quiz.com.
Gabrielle Portiers,
Pag
Garcia
nandito po kayo sa
underscore
pinaka-home,
Andres Soriano.
Kita nyo po yung box doon para sa pin. Ito po yung pin na. Ayan, yung mga mahabol.
Ayan, bali yung mga kukuning winners po natin is top 10 and then mananalo ng 200 Gcash. Tama, Miss Les?
Yes po, yes po.
Ayan.
Pero may mga nagtatype pa.
Cafe, AMCV.
Ayan, Miss Les, siguro po mga
Esula
around 2 minutes.
AC Eddie,
and
Clap
start.
Church.
10:52.
Good luck po sa ating mga ma'ams and sirs kung sino po mananalo ng sa maging top 10 po pala. Good luck po sa inyo. Dali lang naman po siya.
Church.
Mga highlights lang naman po. Mga 50 questions lang naman. Biro lang. Mga 5 questions lang po siya.
And reminders lang po sa mga name natin, last name and then company name po. Para ma-identify natin yung mga winners.
AC Eddie Ricana.
Siguro po, while waiting for a minute, i-mention na rin po natin kung ano po yung expectations, saan po sila sasagot. Diyan na rin po sa platform, right?
Yes po, Sir Anthony.
Okay.
Sa platform.
Padillo AMCB.
So, ma'am and sirs, automatic na po yan. Consider po yan, if I'm not mistaken, consider po gaano po kabilis yung inyong sagot. At of course, kung tama po yung inyong sagot. So, good luck po sa inyong lahat. Okay, mukhang ready na po siguro tayo. Verbal countdown na lang po siguro tayo. In 10, 9, 8, 7, 6,
Judge Kenneth
5,
Lumang.
4, 3, last call po. Kung may pumapasok pa, paki-chat na po kung may mahabol pa. In 3, 2, 1. Okay, Miss Les, feel free.
Quiz.com. Play and
For
create.
question number 1, ma'ams and sirs. What is the average,
ransom?
payment for the Philippines? Is it 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, or 87 million?
87M.
Okay, meron na po tayo
What
leaderboard.
is the top
Bilis.
cyber concern for
Sige, ma'am, meron
2023?
leaderboard. What is the top cyber concern for 2023? Cyber extortion po ba? Data exfiltration? DDoS attack? O phishing attack?
Data exfiltration.
Okay. Data exfiltration. Ang tamang answer po. Sa kanina, 87 million tamang answer. Question number 3. Okay. Gumagalaw po ba leaderboards? Gumagalaw pa rin. So may chance pa po yung iba. True or false?
True or false?
Living on the land
land
technique is
is
to avoid
to avoid.
detection. True or false? Oops, ingat po sa pag-click. Makakala po natin nandun yung tamang sagot.
True.
Correct answer is true. Gumagalaw pa rin po ba ang ating leaderboards? Okay, may pumapasok at may natatanggal pa rin po. Question number 4.
Managed detection and
Sophos
response.
Managed Detection and Response is served 24/7. True or false?
True.
Correct answer is true. May-maintain na po ba ang leaderboards? Hindi pa rin. So may chance pa po ang iba dito sa ating last question.
Final question.
Good luck po.
Double
Final
points.
question. Uy, double points pa pala.
Increase in cyber
Increase in
threats.
cyber
What?
threats,
And
blank,
cybersecurity
and
expertise
cybersecurity
are the three
expertise
main
are the three main challenges organizations face this year. Is it complexity, ease of use, loyalty to brands, or unknown solution to use? Ano po yung blank? Yung tatlong main challenges
complexity.
na minention po natin kanina. Complexity ang tamang sagot. So let's see po ang top 10 winners.
Third place. Gar Living Hope Hospital. Second place.
Okay.
David
Number 3,
Gutierrez
for the top 3
DJS
from Living Hope
MMC.
Hospital, congratulations
Love
po.
Flower.
Number 2 is from DJS MMC, congratulations po. At number 1, yung Love Flower, congratulations po sa winners. But hindi lang po sila yung winners, meron pa rin po yung top 1 to top 10 ang winners po natin. Congratulations po sa inyo, ma'ams and sirs.
Congratulations po.
So meron pa rin po ba tayong post activity, Miss Les, para po sa ating mga audience po, sa ating mga ma'ams and sirs this morning?
Ito na lang po yun, Sir Anthony. Yung top
Okay.
10.
Then with that said, thank you everyone. Ma'ams and sirs, thank you so much for your time. We're actually just right on time. I do hope that you were able to, I would want to say exfiltrate, pero masama po yung term na exfiltrate para po sa ating lahat. But I hope you were able to extract some information or at least some highlights na para po may idea tayo on how to at least generally proceed with current trends na mga nangyayari po sa mga cyber attacks and cybersecurity in general. Of course, there are deep dive discussions. If you require deep dive discussions for anything that we have provided earlier in the topic, please reach out to our partner from Miss Les and team and Sir Rod as well from IPSolutions. Please reach out to them para po makapag-engage po kami sa inyo directly one-on-one with you and your team. With that said, I am Anthony Arroyo. Thank you so much, ma'ams and sirs, for your time. Please have a good day ahead and para po sa ating lahat, Happy Valentine's Day po sa ating lahat. Thank you,
so
everyone.
much po.
Thank you, Miss Les
Valentine's
and
po.
Sir Rod.
Thank you po, Sir Anthony.
IPSolutions team. Thank you,
Thank you, sir.
everyone. Have a good day ahead. Thank you po.
Thank you po.